Up next, our keynote topic is Derailment, the story of the Bakken Crude spill. Our speaker is Arlene Burns. Arlene serves as the mayor of Moser, Oregon. With roots as a world-class kayaker, an expedition leader, and a photojournalist, she serves as the mayor, and where a unit train of Bakken Crude derailed in 2016. Since then, she leads her community and region in fighting fossil fuel infrastructure development. Let's welcome Arlene Burns.
Thank you. Hi, it's wonderful to be here. And if you could go ahead and cue up my presentation, that would be great. Also, Chip and Sally, thank you very much. I feel honored to be amongst this incredible resource of minds and action. So, yes, I am the mayor. This is the view from my bedroom window across the Columbia River into Washington. Moser, Oregon is just east of Portland on the Columbia River, and you see the green area, that's the Cascade Mountains, and the little snake going through is the Columbia River. And Portland is about an hour away. Our area is a National Scenic Area from 1972, and it's a unique designation in the United States. My little town, Mosier, is, I call it lost in the creases of most maps. This is an aerial view of our town, and our town has had a lot of action over a lot of years. First of all, it's been inhabited for at least 18,000 years. We have ruins in our city limits that are SHPO ruins, so I'm not supposed to talk about them. And then the next coming through would have been Lewis and Clark, and the next coming through would have been the railroad in the 1800s. Then the dam, we lost half of our city when the back flooding from the Bonneville Dam, and then we had a freeway cut across our town. So we have a lot of action because this is a corridor. Our population when I moved there was 280, and now it's really out of control at 430. The town, as I said, it's about 100 years old as well, and it's an agricultural community. There's an old scenic highway there, Highway 30, which was the first highway built to be a scenic highway in the history of the United States, and it's one of the widest spots in the Columbia River. This is a rare windless day. We consider ourselves like the very heart of the National Scenic Area, and we are the transition zone between the rainforest and the desert. So literally 5 miles away in Hood River, there's 20% more rain, and we have prolific wildflowers. It's the beginning of the oaks, and if you go 10 miles further, there's desert. Most of our economy is based on agriculture, and our main crop would be cherries, and we have a post office. This is our local swimming pool, our swimming hole inside the city limits, and we have a little fire department that's been based on a long history of volunteers. The community has a lot of agriculture, so there's a lot of farm to table. There's a lot of organic farms there. There are a lot of beautiful kids. We have a couple of little restaurants. We have a little pizza place that's farm to table as well. We have a vintage Porsche shop, and also this is a woman from Bogota who runs a coffee and ice cream place. We call it Porsches and Pralines. And it's attracted a lot of car clubs to come through, so we often see a lot of Porsches and various other cars. So it's a lovely, quiet place. I became the mayor. I'm halfway through my second term. This is our school. It has about 220 kids. It's a charter school. And everything's pretty quiet. We have a lovely little music scene, and in as many towns in Oregon and all over the states, the elected officials are volunteer positions. So when I came back to do remodeling in about 2011, I got roped into city council. I missed a meeting and became council president. And then all of a sudden I became mayor. I won by 98% of the vote, but the person running against me was named Write-In. So everything changed on June 3rd last year when a unit train of Bakken Crude derailed in our town. We have 2 railroads on each side of the river. We have Union Pacific on our side. And this changed everything for the town. It was a rare windless day. We're known as the windsurfing and now kiting mecca of the universe, just about. And in fact, even in June last year, this was the only day that didn't have gusts of over 30 miles an hour. And this really was what saved us, because had there been wind even of 10 miles an hour, we would have lost our town, and everyone knows that. This is, if you can turn up the volumes there, this is a little Blair Witchy. This is the first guy on the scene
right down through there.
Who everyone heard the crash in town.
It's right
and
in the parking lot.
He started walking up to the site.
The train derailed right
and
here.
This hopefully will be the only time you really see what it's like to come upon a derailed train of Bakken crude oil.
Pretty crazy. I'm going to show you a little of the carnage here. I'll climb up this bank. Here's a fence that it just, that the train piled into in this tree. And holy crap. Let me see if I can get around this thing.
Good sound effects.
Oh my gosh, look at the carnage. There's like train parts laying all over the place. Look at this, in the tracks. Springs and brake pads. There's all just overturned tanker cars. Here's the ones on fire up here ahead. Oh man, oh the tracks. The tracks are like almost ripped off. Look how the tracks are bent up here into this curve. Look at these cars, they're just like mangled. Just mangled parts. All the wheels ripped off. Everything is crazy. Up here, look at this, the tracks are just all just ripped out of the ground. The railroad, the ties are all busted. Look at all these just ripped up. Look how the tracks just bent up here. Just totally tore it off. These, they're not getting closer because these are the ones that can blow up.
This is when he realized it probably wasn't a good idea to be where he was. This is another woman. This was, we'd had a big fire in 2009, and people were really afraid of getting trapped. And so this woman with her teenage daughter was driving by the burning tankers trying to get out, because, which is just insane. And at this point, there was nobody around. There were no fire people. There's a little video too, if you want to play it for a second. But this, I'll just go past it because we have plenty. But this is the first aerial view of the crash. And what we didn't know is if there would be these bleve explosions, which is what happened in Montreal, or not in Montreal, in Quebec, where 47 people were killed, and 7 of those people were vaporized, because the impact zone of these explosions is a mile. So that pretty much covers our entire city limits. So 16 cars derailed, 4 caught on fire, and it took several hours for help to get there. You can see the smoke, which was just really horrific. Benzene smoke is blowing over this area of town. So this part, about 100 people were evacuated, and 225 kids from the school were evacuated. And in the meantime, we're still waiting for Union Pacific and people that had foam capable of putting out a crude oil train fire were stuck in gridlock traffic. And that was another thing people hadn't really thought about, is that the people who were crucial for our rescue couldn't get there either. The firefighters, we used city water. We used about 1 million gallons of water. And then the orchardists, thank goodness, had tankers that they started bringing in, so that was another crisis. And all along this time, this train was still connected to a mile long of more cars. So if this domino effect had happened, the first thing the railroad did when they got there, it took 15 hours to put out the fire, is start rebuilding the tracks. And we lost about 60 mature trees. There was no other property damaged or people damaged. But this was the culprit. These were rusty bolts, and it turns out that this sort of shows how they hold on the plates. These crude oil trains are very heavy and they slosh, so that might have been a factor. But bottom line, the most sophisticated inspection did not pick up the rusty bolts, and that they were all over the place. So they've gone back now to spikes. Crude oil was dripping all over the place. It was in our groundwater. Union Pacific was desperate to get going again. We called an emergency city council meeting asking them to please wait till they cleaned up the crude oil before they started, and they said, tough, that's too bad. That enabled the governor and the senators to get behind us. So one of the amazing things that happened, and the true hero of the story, was our wastewater treatment plant. And it turns out the first car that derailed augured into the earth, threw this pothole out, and 25,000 gallons went into the wastewater treatment plant and floated to the surface. So it really saved the Columbia River from a much worse scenario. These are booms put on the river where the oil is leaking out, and again, had it been a windy day, these would have been completely ineffectual. One of the real tipping points in the beginnings of healings was when the four tribes in our region, the Yakima, Warm Springs, Umatilla, and Nez Perce, came to our town, and ironically, that was the first time they had gotten together in a really long time. And Bobby Kennedy came, and that was the beginning of action. And when I started really giving my life force to this issue. I don't have time to show this more. If you can turn down the volume, I'll talk a little bit about it. But this is what a unit train looks like. And there's one thing that Obama did that I wish Trump would undo, which was he lifted the ban on crude oil export. And so we are facing in the Pacific Northwest this tremendous threat from crude oil being shipped. Right now, it's also to the state. But these mile-long trains are really unbelievable. I mean, they're as far as the eye can see, and they go as long as the eye can see. And the one that derailed for us was going to Tacoma, Washington. But there's one of the largest facilities in the United States is being proposed in the Tesoro Savage plant in Vancouver, Washington, in a liquefaction zone. This is Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley who came to the town, and they actually created something called the Mosier Act. It died on the Senate floor, but they've been super engaged to try to bring railroad protection. This is down in San Luis Obispo. I've ended up just basically going where I've needed to go, and they quoted me in the New York Times. Of course, this was like this much out of a 20-minute talk, that they're going to wish they killed us off because we can't shut up about it. And so, of course, the railroad was really upset about that. And this is how I've spent most of my last year, and I guess I've done something right because I've even gotten sued. And, hey, which is really not great when it's a free job. So this is, a lot of the meetings with Union Pacific have been with often like 10 guys from Omaha coming, and we have our little city council in our little town. But I don't think they were expecting us to be as together and as articulate as we were. So as irony would have it, and the very place where the train derailed, Union Pacific has proposed 5 miles of double track so they can have these unit trains pass each other. So now we're fighting like hell for our lives right in front of Mosier on these double tracks. This was the first planning commission that was very heavily based in industry, and they allowed the permit with Union Pacific, despite 1,800 people showing up on the other side, and I think 3,000 letters. That was appealed to the county commissioners, who ended up denying the tracks, the expansion on treaty rights. This is the last governor, the mayor of Portland, and I went and spoke into the Portland City Council, and they were able to pass landmark resolution not allowing any expansion of existing terminals nor any new terminals, and that's huge stuff. So we have momentum, and one of the blessings of this crash is that it's woken us up on a local level, on a regional level, of what was at our doorsteps. We were sort of asleep when all these trains were coming by, and the realization of what it means to turn the Columbia River Gorge into a superhighway for fossil fuels, export to China, it's also misguided. So we've been working to keep it in the ground. This is Dow Constantine, who's the executive of King County, the 4th largest county in the United States population-wise. That includes Seattle and SeaTac. And he started an organization called the Safe Energy Leadership Alliance, which I've been heavily involved in, that has gotten elected officials and tribes to really poignantly point at legislation that is exactly to the issue at hand. And we have expanded our scope to include renewable energy development. And this was exactly a week ago in Wasco County. I counted there were 35 lawyers there in that room. It was Union Pacific versus the county, the Gorge Commission, 4 Indian tribes, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Columbia Riverkeeper, and Friends of the Gorge. And to our great relief, the commissioners upheld the county decision and have denied the tracks. Not that this won't be appealed. Yeah, but it's really progress. And, you know, talking about what your life mission is, I never really thought that it was going to be taking on the railroad and the fossil fuel industry and as my position as mayor. But we are the transition zone between the rainforest and the desert. Let's see. I don't know why that's not going. Come on. Hey. There we go. Okay. And so, let me go back one. Yeah, this is the railroad on the other side, the BNSF, and we really want to be this, I thought I had one more, I'm going to go back, this conduit for change, and we're at the fulcrum of the conversation, and our town would like to be, let's see, there it is. So this is what we'd like to see being carried, and this is going from west to east on our railway. So thank you very much. My time is done.